Chidam, and a very good morning, everyone. My name is Muhammad Fahad. You guys can call me Fahad, and I'm iZeno Senior Project Manager. And I will walk you through the Engage slash ITSM part of our AiOps solution. And during this presentation, I'll explain how Atlassian ITSM help with the Engage activities, which is engaging with the like the observe piece, and then passing the information to Red Hat Ansible to essentially take the automation actions. Okay, and we have been hearing through from Cheatham that Elastic has a very great machine learning AI capabilities in where it can it can learn with the passage of time from unsupervised, like the time series based learning, and then have a capability from a supervised perspective as well. That will result in firing some alerts to take the proactive actions to take to look at what is happening with the service from an error log perspective or from a latency or throughput perspective. And these alerts, these things will be captured in Jira Service Management. And then when these things are captured in Jira Service Management, the next thing that we have is to notify the people who are on standby, who needs to take actions. Either it's a proactive or reactive in case the incident has happened. But essentially, when we have the AI capabilities, the idea is to do proactive piece. And then when it comes to alert, we need to identify who is the right person to be notified for a right service, and that information will be fed from this alert that is coming in, and then the platform will have the capability to also do some kind of routing depending upon the conditions. Okay, and then once we have notified the person, then the next piece that comes into the picture is communication. And it could be the internal communication that we are going to have within the teams with the stakeholders. It could also be the external communication when one of the key services is down, for example, like a telephony integration is down, and we are notifying the internal stakeholders that your contact center agents may not be able to log in. And it could also be an external case when one of the billing application, like billing mobile app or the banking app is down. Then we need to notify the customers that there will be a maintenance period, or there will be that we are experiencing an outage, and so on. Okay, so that is the key to build the trust between internal and external customers. And when we are notifying and trying to recover, another piece or important factor is to collaborate. So collaborate in a sense, how we are going to bring different pieces together to recover fast, and then how we are going to learn from this to not to repeat the same again. So we'll cover all these in this presentation later on. Okay, but let's look at how it was happening previously from a traditional perspective. So traditionally, when we talk about the IT operations and IT ops, as Chidam previously mentioned, that you have lots of screens in there where different services are running. And essentially similar is happening from an Engage perspective as well. You have multiple applications that are running, and every application is firing alerts. And these alerts, for example, is not a readable message, or is not intelligent enough to identify which application needs to be responded or recovered. It's just an email that pushed to IT service desk or a help desk. And then this help desk team is reading through the mailboxes. And then at the same time, employees started raising the tickets. For example, the contact center example that I gave just now, that agents are not able to log in, and the customers also feeling in another scenario. For example, one of the banking app is down, so I'm not able to do my funds transfer. So somebody is again reaching out to the support team, and support team is reaching out to help us, and so on. However, the scenario is configured within the organization. So essentially, the operations, the help center team is like basically swarmed with all this thing. And now this will result in unhappy experience where there can be a complaint about burnout. There can be complaint that I have lots to do. Okay, so how can we recover, or how can we do better, or what is the solution? So from that perspective, we have a modern IT operations that is powered by Atlassian Jira Service Management together with Elastic and Red Hat. So in this case, what happened is we have monitoring systems in place that is feeding the alerts, and Elastic Observability is capturing the logs, the traces from the APM, and then it has the infrastructure logs that are coming in, and then it's correlating everything together and then figuring out the right signal and using that right signal based on the previous learning and firing an alert to do the proactive action. And then when it comes to proactive action, we can see that who needs to be notified to take this action. We can differentiate this based on the service that is firing this alert, and then we can arrange for a command center, and then from when an incident happens, we can leverage of the existing known errors, and then we can look at the existing PIRs and to find out how to respond. And then the platform has the capability to classify these incidents that are coming in, identify the SLAs, whether we are meeting those SLAs or OLAs or not, and then what are the corrective actions needs to be taken care of. And in case we need to take actions from it, like we have defined the actions based on certain parameters, then we have the playbooks ready for self-healing or auto remediation perspective. And in that case, we integrate with Red Hat, pass this information, and system will recover from there. Okay, and while we have this modern system in place that have AI element in, still people can report the day-to-day issues or incidents that they experience, and the system will incorporate that into the platform. Okay. Now we move into the incident management practice of this engage piece. So traditionally, if we look at what is the benefit of this incident management practice, the benefit of the incident management practice is essentially to recover fast whenever there's a disruption to the service. So essentially, whenever there's a disruption in the value or the service is down, we need to have a strong incident management in place to bring this value, the service back, so that users, the customers, everybody can start using the system, the service. Okay, and in order to recover fast and respond quickly, are we prepared for this kind of major outage if that happens? And then if that happens, where are we spending most of our time? And then what is the process that we have to reduce our MTTR? And then what is the process that we have from a continuous learning perspective that we explaining in here from an Atlassian perspective is like, there is one piece which happens whenever we detect an alert or incident. There's a process to classify that. There's a process in place to prioritize that and to communicate, whether it's an internal or external communication. And then we move into respond and investigate stage. So respond and investigate stage is where you leverage of your application, which is basically Elastic Observability that is running, giving you the context into the logs. As we heard, like moving away from monoliths to microservices, you have lots of logs that you can't look with the naked eye. You need an AI power tool that can help you to speed up the investigation. And then we recover, where Red Hat Ansible will play a key role that will have the playbooks ready to self-heal, to auto remediate, and then still you can, by learning things, you can come up with your own processes to go to the next step. And then we move into the continuous learn phase. So essentially, whatever we're learning here, we will be sharing with others to recover fast, for example. But in this overall process, do you think where we spend the most of our time? So like people on the call, they may have know that most of our time is spent during the respond and investigation stage. And according to a study by Forrester, it's 70% of the total incident time that we always spend on investigation piece is just because sometimes we don't have enough tools in place that can correlate different information and give us the results. Okay, so now how our incident management helps to respond to these things. The first thing is we go and capture these alerts. So other than the signals that we are getting from over 200 integrations, there is there is this piece which I mentioned previously, is like you can have a portal to capture these alerts. So we capture all this, and then agents, the operations team, they get the full context in here, which particular system is down and how they are getting the alerts and so on. And then when we look at the service, this service will give us the visibility into like what are the dependencies in here, and then what are the key actions that needs to be taken care of, needs to be executed, and so on. And if I move to the next thing, so we have the alert. If you call back my previous slide, where it's like we capture the alert, we try to escalate. So we capture, and then now we are alerting and escalating different parties in. So we have on-call schedule capabilities into the platform, where we can define different rosters across different teams, from support, from an operations, or from like a development support and network or infrastructure and so on. We can define these. We can define the escalation policies and the alert actions that we need to take care of, and then how the notifications will come through from phone and SMS and so on. And then essentially the idea is to notify the right people at the right time, so that they can respond to that particular alert. Okay. And then tying back to my previous message from a communication perspective, if it's an internal versus external, it's available in there through the status page native integration within Jira Service Management, that whenever there's an outage, and based on the defined protocol within organization, the details of that outage can be communicated directly to the customer, whether it's an internal or external again. And then during the whole process, from detection, investigation, and resolution, the messages can be broadcasted. The idea here is to bring visibility into what is happening, and then build a trust that customer also knows that there is something that is happening, people are working on it. And this will also give you an extra deflection. Is like essentially customer will not raise a ticket, they can straight away go to your website and check the status of your apps and see, okay, I can't transfer funds because the app is experiencing problems. So essentially you deflected a ticket, and if you calculate this back with the passage of time, you will save a lot by deflecting these tickets. And then from an investigation stage perspective, platform gives the feature, the capability to the team to swarm through the command center, audio video calls, and push the notifications to the Slack, and then it can record the activity over the period of time, and then we can also drill down into our deployments that we have done, so that we can figure out, okay, essentially a particular app is down. What we need to do next is there's a recent change that have been deployed, and we can find the cause of that change. Okay, and then from there we have a piece to resolve and learn. So essentially, when we finish, for example, we have executed a remediation playbook that was a quick, and it was from one of the known scenario that we have. But just imagine that we have a new use case where we don't have a playbook ready. We need to learn, and we need to find out the trends so that we can define a playbook. So that from that perspective, Confluence will help you to document your PIR, and then try and start like putting the next steps in to define your playbook. And now, when we deploy a particular change or fix to a particular incident, there's a change practice or that needs to be executed from a standard SOP perspective, for example. And the change is the best change enablement is where you have an optimal, you have a balance between your changes that are doing corrective work versus bringing other applications down. So from that perspective, there's always a discussion how the change management will go through. So there are a lot of studies available from an Atlassian perspective, what we have, and I'll just talk through quickly. But the first thing, the challenge that you all, maybe all the operations team, all the business team that are in the discussion just now in the webinar, they know that there's one reason heavy processes, and there's another reason like pushing the new features to production quickly. So essentially, the heavy processes will slow down the change, and the friction between dev and ops, which is essentially dev pushing new features in, product managers that are trying to release new features, businesses pushing for new features, but operations making sure whether this is tested or not. Do we have enough like testing at the back to defend this, to push forward? And in order to reduce this friction, we have a solution that I'll just show quickly. And then while we are pushing this, we need to maintain a balance between what innovation we are coming in versus what we are getting. Okay, so now tying back to my previous comment, to have a balance in, and then to reduce the friction is the risk assessment engine that we have within Jira Service Management. So from Jira perspective, we say like you can write down the processes that may not need an approval, can be defined as a standard change, where you know the risk. And then you have a high risk change, you have a medium risk change, for example. So for high risk change, you can map them into the standard practice. For example, you say like go through the normal change enablement change management process. And then if you have a low risk or medium risk change, then how you will do that is essentially you try to push into the staging environment before you go into the production. So that's how you push your pre-approved changes, your standard changes into production by automating your processes, and then you can do the standard like process of analyzing the risk through the normal change management process for the high risk change, and for the medium risk change you push into another environment before you roll out. So that will help reduce the friction through this power of the platform. And it's very easy to take the change. People can just quickly submit the forms, the questions directly, like basically the change request through the portal. Platform will run certain rules behind the scene to calculate the risk depending upon the questions or fields that are filled, and then assign a particular risk or level to that particular change. Okay, and then from a planning perspective, if we talk about a normal change, then different parties are involved, the pre-built templates are there, and then you can have your reviewers, stakeholders, and approver all collaborating on the same page to push this change quickly to the next level. And then from an approval perspective, it's very easy to identify for what particular service, what particular impact, what risk level, who needs to approve. And then we can get the information from CMDB and identify the right service owners and push the change back to the next for approval to the next party. And then when it comes to implementing, if it's an infrastructure change, it's a different discussion for them. But if it's a dev change, for example, then you have a CI/CD tool integration to push this change into production without any issue. Okay, and this tool, Jira Service Management, is not just helping the IT team. It can go beyond that, which is it can help with help the other teams as well to build their processes in. But it's essentially like a capability of the platform to deep dive in. Okay, and the last but not least is essentially from a reporting perspective, from a dashboard perspective, what people will get from here. And if we talk about infrastructure leadership, or if we talk about operation leadership, what they are looking at when they log into the platform, they can see, okay, how much availability they are providing for one service and how many incidents are happening. So essentially, it will also help them to plan for the future. If in case they need to bring more infrastructure in, they need to implement a new service and so on, they can get insights there. Okay, and then we have the Jira Service Management has a proven business value. It's very easy to set up. Is basically if you are switching from traditional legacy to the ITSM, it will give you like a decent percentage of ROI, which is proven by Froster as well. And it's very easy to roll out. Like average implementation we look at is 2 months, depending upon the complexity and the maturity of particular solution that like particular scenario that we are handling. And then the efficiency is increased a lot because of the native intuitive workflows that we have integrated in. Okay, and then from a platform capabilities perspective, that last year 2021, essentially 2 years back, Atlassian was Jira Service Management was named as visionary, but then last year in 2022 it is pushed into leader. And that is essentially the statement where we are calling it a modern ITSM, where the platform has the capability to orchestrate between different scenarios, by just putting the rules in and then figure out how we need to integrate with other parties. And then it's also not named as leader from an enterprise service management perspective. Okay, and with this, thank you very much.